The following video is part of the Northern California Training Academy and Casey Family Program's Crisis Communication and Preparation video series. This series is designed to walk child welfare leaders through steps to take in order to be prepared before an incident occurs, including the development of a crisis communication plan, working within a political environment, and creating a narrative that promotes successful solutions that will improve the safety and well-being of children and families in care.
We want to open this session with actually breaking news, but Sherry, can you take a mic and just set up for the group what happened here and the coverage from last night actually on the local TV station? We thought would be a good way to open this session.
Thanks very much. The story from Sacramento, the events happened last April. We took a child into custody and got international notoriety over it. The reasons for these, I'd speculate, were two. First, mom and dad set up a video camera in their home. So we had video footage on the local newscast of the police and the social worker taking the baby out of mom's arms. So, you know, TV, if it's visual, TV likes it. It got picked up the other reason I think it went viral is because the lovely mom is an immigrant from Russia and had this great remark about how what we did reminded her of communism and you know, felt like a communist agency. So that was exciting. It went viral. The parents were on the Today Show and The View, and we got international hate mail and FBI, you know, very exciting. So our response took a while, but it was a team response. It took us weeks and months, and folks like Kim Pearson, our emergency service director, and Alicia, our data person, put together the data that we could start to use to show how many investigations we do per month and how many we take into custody and how many were without a warrant, to show that this case was uncharacteristic of our agency and we shouldn't be painted with a broad brush. Laura McCaslin, our public information officer, cultivated the reporter involved over a long period of time, offered to take him on ride-alongs with caseworkers to understand our agency better, and this happened over the summer. I leaned on the news director at the station, and I didn't exactly say you owe us some more positive coverage, but I did say, look, if you paint the wrong impression of our agency, the result will be people won't call us when they see abuse happening because they'll be afraid that we'll overreact, and so you should do some more positive things. As a result of that, we did get some coverage from the station of, for example, they came out and covered our graduation from early intervention family drug court, where families were able to stay with their children if they followed through on their court plan and their drug and alcohol treatment, so we get some positive coverage there. And the biggest thing, I think, was we adopted a policy under guidance from Tracy Lee, our county counsel. We adopted a policy of saying to this young journalist, and all journalists in cases like this, you know, you could actually commit an act of journalism here. You could petition the court and ask to have the record released so that the information about on what we based our decision on is no longer confidential. And finally, the records did come out, and the reporter looked at them, and this is Sweeps Week, as you may be aware, so we knew we were going to get a story for Sweeps Week. We didn't know what it was, and now you're going to see the story that resulted.
The case of baby Sammy Nikolaev captured the attention of people across the world when police and social workers took the child from his parents last April. The reason they cited was severe neglect. But beyond that, we've never really gotten much more of an explanation until now.
But now, court records obtained by News 10 reveal a complex struggle going on behind the scenes. News 10's Gabriel Rojas has followed this story from the very start. Gabriel?
Dylan, Christina, it's taken months, but after numerous requests, the court finally agreed to release to me hundreds of pages of juvenile court documents. They include medical records, police reports, and CPS communications. The judge who authorized their release noted the public interest in the case, as well as the statewide audit it prompted. Contained within these pages are some of the answers to the questions we've been asking since the beginning.
Police Department, Anna.
Why? That's been the key question since Anna and Alex Nikolaev showed the world this home video they shot of Sacramento police and CPS social workers entering their home April 24th and taking their son, Sammy.
I'm going to grab your baby, and don't resist and don't fight me, okay?
For months, doctors had been worried about the boy's condition, noting, Samuel continues to be in congestive heart failure. His weight gain has not been adequate. The doctor goes on to write, we may have to intervene surgically sooner than we hoped for. On April 16th, Anna brought Sammy to Sutter Memorial Hospital's emergency room with the flu. Doctors made a disturbing discovery. Quote, 2 weeks ago, they went on vacation and forgot his medicines, but since he seemed to be doing fine, they left him off of them. Further noting, quote, the cardiologist did not tell them to stop the meds. Over the course of several days, the Nikolaevs argued with hospital staff over what to feed the baby and whether to allow doctors to insert a feeding tube. Sammy also suffered from a hernia, and documents show Anna claimed, quote, if she placed coins on both sides of his hernia, it will go away. When News 10 first met Anna, she described how difficult these days were, especially after doctors began pushing for surgery.
If we got the one mistake after another, I don't want to have my baby have a surgery in the hospital where I don't feel safe.
All along, we've known Anna removed Sammy from Sutter without a proper discharge, against medical advice. A Sutter social worker called the police to find them. Officers met the Nikolaevs across town at Kaiser Permanente. But CPS records show when a Sutter social worker learned that Kaiser had released Sammy to his parents, she, quote, expressed frustration at this because the child needs immediate follow-up. Kaiser records show both hospitals communicated with each other about Sammy's care. A Kaiser doctor specifically noted, I do not have concern for the safety of the child at home with his parents. However, the Sutter social worker told CPS she was unable to get, quote, any treatment or discharge information from the child's Kaiser emergency room visit. On April 24th, CPS began a rapid investigation and received a letter from one of Sammy's cardiologists who wrote, the child remains at risk for failure to thrive, dehydration, developmental delay, and death. CPS decided to place Sammy in protective custody and called police, and that's what led to this moment. After Sammy returned to Sutter, the Nikolaevs went public with their experience. The couple has credited public scrutiny for getting their son to Stanford, where he finally received his heart surgery. And since the release of the court documents, the Nikolaevs have filed a claim against Sacramento County that seeks an unspecified amount in damages. A spokesperson for CPS cited that claim as reason why they could not comment specifically about this case. We also asked the Nikolaevs to comment on the information revealed in the documents. Their attorney declined our request for an interview. We should note that among these documents are objections by both Anna and Alex Nikolaev, in which they insist much of what's in here relies on hearsay materials. And in my most recent exchange with Anna, she wrote in a Facebook message, quote, they've been lying from the beginning, so that's nothing new to us. As for Sammy, the family tells us he's growing up fast, he recently became a big brother, and he'll turn 1 year old later this month.
Wow, boy. We knew from the start, that this wasn't a case of Sutter just taking the baby away for no reason. We just couldn't get the information on what the reason was or why they were doing it this way. But you can see where there were, cultural miscommunications, medical miscommunications, and yeah, but there are some reasonable reasons there.
Yeah, we had always heard severe neglect. This really kind of flushes out what they were interpreting as severe neglect. What they were saying was the evidence that they found of severe neglect. So this really kind of gives us a better picture of what their thinking was, what their reasoning was.
Yeah, CPS had reason to be concerned about the baby's health. The third part of this, though, is kind of the strong-armed way the baby was taken away from the family. That's upsetting to a lot of people, that maybe there was a better way to handle that moment when you go into someone's house and take their baby.
Yeah, there's always going to be areas here that the sides just are not going to agree. But I think when we see those pictures that Anna just sent us in, the recent pictures of Sammy, the one thing on which we can all agree, it's just great to see that baby healthy and doing well.
Exactly.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Gabriel.
That was great, and I know this may take a long time, and maybe Casey would help, but it would be really important to send that link to every reporter that did a national follow-up story, to put them on notice that they should not go with a runaway train like this until they know the facts. But also, and Marlo's going to talk about this in just a few minutes, going to the court, the importance of maybe getting them to open up some documents when there are cases like this where you're stymied, are not able to talk, but there's facts to back it up. And so that's what this session is about. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. It's basically along the lines, Steve, of your comment, when the mayor said, this isn't in my job description, do I really have to do this? That does more to build community support and community confidence in your agency than anything else you can do. So that's basically a good way to segue into this question of the balance between transparency and confidentiality. A few things that we've learned over the years and underscores what Steve just said. First of all, not all crises are truly a crisis. And as you know, a lot of things happen in your agencies that never quite make it to the media. Oftentimes when I get called by an agency and they describe to me this horrible case, the first thing I hear is, well, the media doesn't know about it, but we're preparing for it. You really need to start assuming that any case you've got that is along these lines, someone in the media could get their hands on, if not the day of, the day after, a month later. But again, not all of them are the same types of crisis or warrant you going into overdrive on the crisis. One of the things you may want to do in your agency is start keeping a tally of what types of crisis happens. Then design a strategy for when it happens, this is what we're going to do. And these are just a few examples of the types of crises that get attention. Remember, you're there to serve the public, but to be effective, you have to have the impeccable reputation and community support. I love going to media and saying you're making our job harder because people may not come to us and report violations of abuse or neglect. But in a free society, media more and more see themselves as watchdogs. The public gives you taxpayer dollars, and so you've got to be accountable. But at the same time, you've got a responsibility and obligation to tell your story and be skillful at it. So that if you don't have a PIO officer right now, you may want to think about, can we add a person who does public relations and public information, or is there someone in the agency that we can rearrange their job description and what they do so that we've got somebody trained in our agency to respond to these types of requests. This is a danger grid that we put together because when a crisis does hit or when reporters start calling, indeed, if this is a case that you never knew about, that they're not in your system, you may or may not be allowed to tell them about the case in terms of your confidentiality. That is a different strategy than if you've got a kid in your system placed in foster care and the foster parent kills that kid. So again, there's going to be different strategies and different ways to deal with reporters. And I want to echo what Sarah said as a reporter. At least legitimate reporters, they do care about accuracy. And so to give yourself some time to be able to say, look, I don't want to give you wrong information. I want to be as accurate as possible. So yes, the kinds of messages we heard on day one are sympathy toward the family, you're investigating the case, you will get back to them with accurate information as soon as possible. So what you've got to balance is, when you're in a crisis, you've got to provide enough details so you convince journalists, editors, and the public that your agency either did all that it should and could have done and did a good job at it, or you are accountable and you're prepared to improve and use this as a way to build and actually transform the agency. Be accessible and forthcoming. Tell the truth. Your tone, you need to acknowledge the situation, think big picture, the details, and lessons learned. Never underestimate a crisis, never lie or be defensive. Personalize your agency, explain what you do, and use it as an opportunity to explain that and respond quickly. Again, no comment is not an option. It is okay to say, I don't know all the facts, and as soon as I find out, I will get back to you. When you goof, you've got to confess and repent and stay ahead of the story. So with that, Kendall, who is both a lawyer and an MSW and a PIO person, all yours.
I'm happy to be here today, and I want to thank Casey for bringing me here. I had the advantage of I came into this work from the outside as a layperson, and so like a lot of you, I had not had the benefit of hanging with Kathy Bonk and all the experts in this field before I started doing this. I essentially woke up one morning and was the statewide spokesperson for a $1.3 billion agency with 20,000 kids in care. In terms of volume, it was very similar to LA, actually. And so there I was in Illinois, and reporters started calling me. I actually think that orientation, thinking of yourself as kind of new to this, is something that is to your advantage. I didn't have all the reflexively defensive responses built into me because I hadn't been doing this for forever. I'm a ticked-off former foster parent who got into this as a second career. And believe me, I told every reporter I ever talked to that because it helped frame me as somebody who was really a systems advocate, a reform advocate. I was on their side. And what I found was that essentially, if it was a reporter, if it was a legislator, whoever was calling me, they were essentially asking some version of, why the heck do you do it that way? And it was a bit of an advantage, and I would suggest to you that even if you know the answer to the question, take a second and then turn to everybody, because this is what I had to do at the start. And I'd say to everybody, why the heck we do it that way? And sometimes there was a very good reason. Sometimes we didn't like the way we were doing it. We were in the process of changing it. But I was working with a group of people like you who are very committed to doing this work right. And as my communications mantra, because the Kathy Bonks of the world and Mr. Sugarman and whatnot, they can cite you the research and all that kind of thing. I had to approach it at just a practical day-to-day basis, and my favorite was the Mark Twain quote. Always tell the truth. It's the easiest story to remember. And if you think of that, if you think of the time that you had your hand in the cookie jar as a kid and you told your sister one version and your mom another version and your brother another, life got real complicated because you had to keep track of what you'd said to whom. If you're sticking with the straight story, you don't ever have to change your story. I think all of that means that when we approach this balance between transparency and accountability, we have to remember that we're public servants. And for the attorneys in the room, I would actually suggest to you that this is not a balancing test. Maybe we've even misnamed this session, because I don't think you balance transparency and accountability. I think you have to back up one step in the analysis and ask yourself, transparency about what and confidentiality about what. And I think that what the public really wants from us, and they have every reason to deserve, is that we are transparent about our actions as the public sector in a case. That's what we need to be transparent about. And the confidentiality is really meant to protect families. And so I would suggest to you that your goal in every one of these situations, to answer the gentleman's question earlier, it's not a balance. You can do both, you have to do both. Be as transparent as you can possibly be about the actions of the agency and what we've done. This is public service. I used to tell reporters all the time, when somebody knocks on a door to investigate a family, that's you and me knocking on that door. It's our tax dollars that are paying that person. We elected the people who passed the laws that set up the rules that those people use when they walk into a home. It's you and me knocking on this door. And if you take that attitude, you want the public to understand this stuff. And with all due respect to all of the media experts, I would suggest that you may be better off not thinking of reporters as different kinds of people. Now, maybe that's just because I'm a news junkie myself, so I already know how they think, perhaps. But who are those reporters? Who are those legislators that are calling? The various people that are calling? They're representatives of the public. And we do this work as a public duty, this work of serving families and protecting children. So when a reporter calls, I don't care what they're calling about, that's an opportunity. And I'm trying to say here, I think, the same thing that everybody else has said, but perhaps because I came into this as a non-expert, this different way of looking at it would be helpful to you. I actually was the spokesperson for that massive system for 6 years. I took full responsibility. I put myself up front. I didn't duck behind any of it. But I felt throughout that when a reporter calls, it's an opportunity. And when I first got into this work, completely out of the blue, no qualifications, no training, no protocol, no nothing, I was told, oh, this is all about crisis management. Boy, you got to get ready because there's going to be a crisis, or we might have a crisis, or we had a crisis last year, this kind of thing. I thought to myself, what is a crisis? A crisis is when everybody goes, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, throws their hand up in the air and starts running around the office, figuring out what the hell to do. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be with those people. That sounds like not a lot of fun at all. And then I said, well, what is a crisis? And they said, well, like when a kid dies. All right, I checked the numbers. In the state of Illinois, going back to the early 80s, when they first started reliably tracking this stuff, between 55 and 90 children die due to abuse or neglect every year, very reliably within that range, between 55 and 90. So I said to everybody, so a kid dies, it's a crisis. That means we have a crisis like once a week. Is that any way to run an agency? And I want to go back to what Mr. Sugarman said, confidence that it's being managed. I think the public wants a steady hand at the till here, don't they, at the tiller? I think that, believe it or not, in all those years of me doing this work, I never had a crisis management plan. I never had a crisis communications plan, and I didn't let anybody use the word crisis. I said to myself, and I said to everybody that I worked with, we're in the child welfare business, aren't we? This is tough stuff. We got difficult decisions to make every day. And we had systems in place, and I bet you do too, of how to look at each and every individual case, to learn from those. Systems of quality improvement, systems of child death review teams. So when a child died, sad to say, but it was a part of our ordinary daily work. And the public needed to know we took each of those cases seriously, not just the ones the reporters called about. And so if you take that attitude, when a reporter calls, it's an opportunity to give the same message you've been giving all along. And really when I say don't bother with the crisis communications plan, what I mean is have the kind of communications plan that these folks are saying that you need to have. But that's the plan you have every day. That's the work you do every day. And so when something comes up that hits the paper and you get a call, it's an opportunity. You should look